Hello everyone and welcome! In my last video, I mentioned listening as one of 4 things you should practice at least 5 times a week to improve your English. Let's speak more about listening. Listening is the most employed skill. Perhaps you've never realized this, but we use listening skills all the time in everyday life. We use them in face-to-face communication, phone conversations, listening to the radio, and watching TV. That's why you should never neglect listening when learning a language. Listening is one of the inputs in second language acquisition. The second one is reading. It would be best if you practice English listening to enhance your understanding of people by following my 6 tips for listening. Let's dive in. On tip number 1, choose appropriate material. This step is crucial. You need to listen to material that is slightly above your current level. In other words, you need to understand at least 80% of what you hear. Otherwise, you might not understand the speech on the whole, or you might get confused or lost. That will only discourage you from learning. So, be careful when choosing material. Sometimes it's great to challenge yourself, of course, but assess whether the material works for you or not. Ask yourself questions like, how much do I understand? Is it too difficult or, on the other hand, too easy for me? Tip number 2, make it fun. What should you listen to? Anything that interests you. Listening should be fun and enjoyable. Please, don't make it a tedious activity for you. When we listen to something that is appealing to us, we often don't realize that we are learning because we're enjoying the activity so much. Remember, learning a language can be and also should be fun. Tip number 3, set a daily goal. How often should you listen? Ideally, every single day. It doesn't mean you have to spend hours practicing listening. Remember, learning a language in small chunks every day or at least 4 times a week is much more effective than learning a language for an hour or 2, but just once a week. So, when speaking about listening, it's much more effective to listen 10 minutes a day, 6 times a week, than to listen to something for an hour just once a week. Does that make sense? My tip is set a daily goal. Firstly, it should include a part of the day, like the morning or evening, or the exact time you practice listening. Find out what works for you. Secondly, choose the material you listen to. Knowing precisely what you listen to every day makes things much easier because you don't have to search for new material every day and you don't have to bother thinking about what you should listen to today. Example? After a few weeks, you should increase the length of listening and maybe change the material because you may start to get bored with the same material. But that may not be the case for you. So, it's your decision. Tip number 4. Listening while doing other things. Nowadays, many people find themselves overly busy. If you are one of them, it might be difficult for you to achieve your daily goal. So, here's an option for you. Practice listening while doing other things. You can listen to English while commuting to work or school, doing domestic chores or walking a dog. I usually listen to something when doing my makeup or ironing. When we listen to English and do another task simultaneously, we don't typically focus on listening all the time. So, maybe you are distracted here and then and don't catch 100% of the speech. But even if your brain focuses on 70 or 60% of the listening activity, that's much better than no listening at all. And without a doubt, you can combine the previous tip with this one. So, you practice listening based on your set goal when you are 100% focused on listening, and later during the day, you listen to something simultaneously while performing other tasks. Tip number 5, repetition. You should listen to the same material 3 or 4 times to acquire new vocabulary and grammar. Anytime you listen to something and you can play it again, do so. I know listening to the same material several times might be boring. Still, the best thing about it is that you don't have to memorize the new words because when you listen to something 3 or 4 times, you will naturally remember vocabulary without trying to remember it. I would say that this is the best tip for learning vocabulary through listening practice, and it might be applied to reading as well. My final tip, assess your progress. When you've listened to the material, let's say for 2 or 3 weeks, ask yourself questions like, is this useful for me? Am I improving in English by listening to this? What have I improved so far? Continually assess your progress. It will be a waste of time and energy to practice anything in English and not to improve. So, once you find something that doesn't work for you, change it. Okay, these are my 6 tips for listening practice. Now, let's speak about how to practice listening. I want to introduce 3 methods to you. The first one is the easiest. You just listen to a chosen material. So, you don't have to do anything else, just play a video, a podcast or whatever, and listen to it. Now, this method has its pros as well as cons. Let's start with the pros. It's the easiest way, takes the least energy, and is comfortable. By simply listening to something, your ears adapt to the accent, your brain is exposed to the sound patterns in the language, and it gets used to them. On the other hand, you won't learn a lot of new vocabulary because you don't look up or translate new words. You will likely figure out the meanings of some new words from the context, but still, there will be new words that you won't understand. But it's okay, and this method will still be beneficial for you. The second method, listening plus looking up new vocabulary. Anytime you come across a new word in the speech, look it up. So, don't just listen to something, also use a dictionary. I highly recommend an online dictionary because you can repeatedly listen to the pronunciation. My favorite online dictionary is the Cambridge Dictionary. I'll leave the link below. To look up new words, you need to know their spelling, right? It's not a problem if you have a script for your listening. But in many cases, you won't have it. So, you won't be able to look up all new words since English words are pronounced differently than they are spelled. But in many cases, you can guess the spelling just from the pronunciation. So, to conclude, you are practicing listening and also learning new vocabulary. And by learning new vocabulary, your listening will also improve, since the next time you hear the words you've learned, you will understand them. The final and best method of practicing listening is to listen while reading the script, and then listen again without the script. Of course, you can look up new words during the process. This method demands the most energy and time, but when you finally listen again, the whole speech should be clear for you and you should understand everything. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was useful for you. See you next time. Bye!